So that's the first coat dried. That's this used satin finish. And I've used this because it's old and it was free as the first coat. And then the second coat is the gloss finish. Now, it is wet, but it's going to look like that when it dries. And I know it's got a bit of a, I don't think it'll have quite as much of a reflection. But if we walk up here and look at it in the natural light, that's the satin finish. And that's the gloss finish. And this shows up more of the detail, but because it's old, right, it would need another 2 or 3 coats, whereas I can just lay this down and then finish it with the gloss finish. And the gloss finish is, this is what I've used in the other rooms. But of course, the satin is free, the gloss finish is from stock, which means I had to pay for it at some point. And then we can see the sanded down floor here and the original floor here. Now this has had most of the paint removed, but not all of the paint. So this is the original classroom floor, but with the paint removed. This is the fully sanded satin finish, fully sanded gloss finish. And I've just done that. I'm just showing you the difference. This will tone down a little. And whilst this has had an enormous amount of paint removed, right, basically the whole floor, this is a good patch. But the whole floor is covered in paint. So I'll get this section done first. And this is now all cleaned of paint. Hello and welcome to the top of the world. Little caveat before we start, right? It still hasn't snowed, so you know we're weeks and weeks behind where we should be, which I suppose is good because it means I'm still out and about doing stuff. So what am I doing? Well, when we came here with virtually nothing, so we collected all this old furniture and stuff so that we could kind of, you know, make some sort of semi-permanent camp in the old school I've been renovating. But as time goes on, of course, I'm building in closets and wardrobes and tables, renovating tables. I'm doing all this kind of stuff. And all this furniture is just collecting, and it's just, you know, I'm tripping over my own stuff. And then, of course, now I'm doing the big room upstairs, I've got more old furniture to chuck out. So this morning, I've just done a run to the theatre, which is a shame. Right, because I haven't started on the theatre yet, and I'm just filling it full of, we don't even want to go there. For those of you that know, you know. Right, I've got another building, so I empty one building and start filling up that building, and I end up with 2 full buildings and outbuilt anyway. But I've decided to drive back the back way, just because it's a stunning route back through the forest, and the snow that you see, it's just kind of been in the air. We've had no significant snowfall whatsoever. Now, I can't just turn the camera around because my camera stabiliser thing is broke. Obviously, when the phone went in the bottom of the river, we all seen that, had a good laugh over that, yeah. Well, I haven't got a new one since then, so I'm actually going to spin the camera around and use the facing camera, which I think is a lesser grade than the back camera, but it don't wobble about because otherwise it'll just be rubbish footage. Now I'm rabbiting. Has he just been out and let loose? Yeah. Does he look extra cute because I've cut his face? Well, he looked a lot better, right? But my Sarah, then she took the scissors to his Mohican. Well, I don't know why she has to interfere. Anyway, so he looks a bit more stupid than he did, but nevertheless, I think he's looking really cute. Oh, and son. Looking lovely, yeah, handsome. Right, we're going to turn this camera around and see how that works for you all. Now, I'm kind of hoping you can't see them wires, right? Because there's one thing I don't like about this van, and that's them wires. I really don't like them wires. Anyway, you probably can't see them in the summer, but since we spend more time driving in the winter than the summer, here we go. Right in front of you, down that bit there, down that bank. Both times in the Land Cruiser, funnily enough. Why is that? Well, because I was driving too fast, way too fast. Approaching the construction of the new electricity substation or distribution station. That there in front of you, that's what they built. That's where all that wood and reclaimed crates and stuff come from. That's what they were building. Means we're on the approach to the dam, which is where all our power comes from. Partially frozen at the top there. And we're going to drive across the top of the dam. So this is what you saw me doing yesterday. This is now dry. I've scuttled all the furniture over to that side, out of the way, and I've cleaned all the paint off and sanded this side. Well, I say this side, another, it's not quite a third of the floor, but I've gone as far as I can. Is it completely dark outside? Yeah, not because it's night time, because it's November. Well, actually, it's 1st of December today. Hello, son. And therefore it's dark outside most of the time. So, what are we putting on here? Yacht varnish. So, what I've done, I suppose I should explain what I've done. I'm not renovating the floor back to new. It's got so many layers of varnish on the floor. The original floor went down in 1948. Who knows how many times it's been varnished since then. And to get the varnish off, when you try and sand it, it heats up and it just melts and just makes a right mess. So if you was to sand this back to bare wood, it would be really expensive, really costly, and what you ended up with is a new floor. Well, if you're going to do that, you may as well lay another floor over the top of it, which would be a waste of time. And I haven't sanded down past the varnish because, as you can see from this side, I want to retain all the original features of the school. So I haven't repaired any of the damage. I'm leaving the damage in there. I've just taken all the paint that was splashed on the floor in 81, 82, I'm guessing. Anyway, so I'm coating this now with yacht varnish to give it another coat. I don't think it needs 2 coats. I've put a nice stick coat on there, it's gone on there nicely. I don't think it was going to need a second coat. So I've sanded this down just so it adheres to it. In an ideal world, what you want to do is wipe this off with mineral spirits, acetone. It's too big a floor and it's too expensive. So I vacuumed it and I vacuumed it and I vacuumed it, and now I'm just going straight over the top of yacht varnish. And I'm going to put my music on, and then I'm going to fast forward this, because this is going to take me several hours to do this bit. So enjoy the video. So that's one coat, and I'm really hoping, based on what I did yesterday and what's dried today, and now you can't see the difference between what's wet and what dries, what is wet and what is dry, that it only needs that one coat. And how have I applied it? Right, so yacht varnish. It's actually really quite a difficult thing to apply and use, and depending on what you're doing, depends on how you use it. So here, I've used it plentifully, a lot of it. And I've dripped it into the holes, and I've brushed it all in the right direction, and it will self-level, and it will give a really, really good floor finish. However, if you're using it on desktops, cabinets, whatever else you're using it on, and it's on bare wood, it's going to need 5 coats. And how I apply it is I apply the first coat slightly thinned with thinner. And then I sand that down with 500, 800 grit sandpaper, and then I finish it with 2000 grit sandpaper, and then I apply a further 4 coats. After each coat I leave 48 hours and I use 1500 or 2000 grit sandpaper knowingly. What I'm saying is, what you don't want to do is, all you're doing is you're taking the knobbles off and any bubbles that are formed, and you don't want to leave swirl marks because it'll come through. How do you get the bubbles out? Once you've applied 5 coats like this, you'll get a glass finish, as good as epoxy. Almost as good as epoxy. Bubbles. You could write a book on how to get bubbles out of varnish and epoxy. How I do it is I brush on the varnish and then I stroke it with the brush all in the same direction, but only the weight of the brush. So I literally hold it between my fingers and I drag it. And I drag it. Now, the more you're putting on, as in with the floor, I put it on generously, the better that will feel and take all the brush marks out. The thinner you put it on, you're dragging it, the more likely it is to leave brush marks. And the downside to leaving brush marks is when you go back and you lightly sand it, you've got ridges and valleys. And if you don't sand it right, or if you've got too heavy brush marks, you'll see them. So what happens if you're on your 3rd or 4th coat and you wreck the finish? Well, it's got to come off. Very difficult to repair if it's for a fine piece of furniture. Now, on a fine piece of furniture, it's very unlikely you're going to use 5 coats of yacht varnish. Now, I have downstairs on the desktops, so that they don't get damaged and scratched. You would oil or you would wax normally. And the only reason I haven't waxed the floor is because you'll see behind me on this side here, it's so heavily varnished. This floor is a school floor. This was a classroom. It's so heavily varnished. You're not going to get it off. Or if you are, it's going to cost you a fortune. You're going to set fire to everything doing it. And I don't want a new floor, right? It's a school floor. So I'm renovating it to its former standard. I'm not changing it or, you know, give it a different finish. I want its existing finish. You can see I've put wood round the top, and also on the ceiling, really interestingly, this was all covered by hardboard. This is the original school ceiling, right? Never seen before when it was a school. Nails, rust, the works. That is the original, hand nailed by men, not machine. And then for the school, it was covered up with hardboard and the joints were taped and it was painted. And that adds a layer of insulation. However, I like it like that. So I have no intention of doing anything with the ceiling. I've got to put the trim around the top edges now. The floor's done. And then on this wall, this is where I'm building in the cabinets. This was the wall where I had to move all that furniture from. I don't know, for those of you who remember, there was this wall here, been here for years, annoying me, and really bad electrics, and all the old electrics have gone now. There wasn't many, but all the electrics are from 1947, 1948, and wrapped in paper. I just couldn't sleep well at night. So it's taken me 6 years to put the electrics into this upper floor, which is our accommodation. Of course, there were no electrics up here. It was a classroom and a gymnasium, built in 1948. They were very basic lights. However, what was in the walls, or what was in the ceilings, was wire wrapped in tarred paper, a recipe for a fire. Oh, and then, of course, covered on top with shavings. So that's where we are. Anyway, there's that section of floor done. So I'm hoping by the end of the weekend, we'll have this floor finished. And then I can rearrange the furniture and put the Christmas tree up for Sarah, because she's going to want a Christmas tree. And that way we won't have any bad smells or dust or dirt over, you know, the Christmas period, because it's coming. And every year we've lived in Anyway, I'm not doing it this year. I'm going to get this room as finished as I can for her so that she's got somewhere clean for Christmas. I think that's it. Did I cover everything on the varnish? Yeah. I think we'll call it there. Thank you for joining me today, and we'll catch you on the next one. If you like the content, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you're not. It's really starting to help me out. We're nearly there. We're nearly there. We need 1,000 subscribers. Give it a thumbs up. Subscribe. It's going to really, really help me out. Thank you very much. Catch you on the next one. Bye for now.